Never go to the second location. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne, and you are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. And you know that on Residue, we tell you the truth behind your favorite movies. Today, we will be talking about Party Monster. Now, Party Monster, the movie, was based on a book by James St. James titled Disco Bloodbath. Is there a band named Disco Bloodbath? Because if there is not, I call that name. And really quickly, before we get started, you guys know that you can find me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, Facebook, Residue, a True Crime Podcast, and TikTok, Residue, a True Crime Podcast. And you know that the best thing you can possibly do for any podcast that you love is leave a positive review. And thank you so much for all of the amazing reviews you have been sending me. I live for it. It makes my day. You guys make me so happy. And you know, all of the podcasters that you listen to that are indie podcasters, we don't have any money coming in. We don't have a lot of, big studios backing us up. We are just trying our hardest to get our social media sites going, to get the word out about our podcast. And so when you guys leave us a positive review, you have no idea how much that actually helps us. Thank you so much for building this community with me, and thank you so much for being here. I wish I could hug all of you. And remember, before we begin this episode, listener discretion is always advised. Oh, and one more thing. Money, success, fame, and glamour. Party Monster is a 2003 biographical crime drama based on real-life events from the New York City nightlife scene of the late 1980s and early 1990s. The story chronicles the rise and fall of club promoter Michael Alig, one of the most notorious figures among the club kids, who went from hopeful party impresario to drug-addled criminal implicated in murder. This movie is directed by Fenton Bailey and Randy Barbato, and they are also the screenwriters. It's based on the club kid culture and the book Disco Bloodbath by James St. James. So you can find this book titled Party Monster because it was previously published as Disco Bloodbath. So Party Monster is a total cult classic. I mean, you will find people that absolutely love this movie and then people that absolutely just can't stand it. So the film follows Michael Alig, who is played by Macaulay Culkin, a Midwestern youth who arrives in New York City determined to reinvent himself, and he becomes a part of the flamboyant nightlife alongside writer and party promoter James St. James, Seth Green. So Michael Alig soon builds a reputation for hosting these outrageous underground parties that attract this flamboyant crowd. Now, you may remember seeing the club kids on the daytime TV talk shows such as Donahue, Geraldo, Jenny Jones, Sally Jesse Raphael. I was obsessed with the club kid look. So Party Monster received mixed to negative reviews from critics. Roger Ebert gave it a 3 out of 4 stars, praising Macaulay Culkin's fearless depiction of Michael Alig, even while noting the film's lack of a deeper psychological insight. Other reviewers found the movie lacking in depth and criticized its portrayal of drug culture and character development, though many acknowledged its vivid portrayal of the underground New York City party life. Star-studded cast in Party Monster. We had Macaulay Culkin as Michael Alig, Seth Green as James St. James, Chloe Savini as Gitzy Natasha Leone as Brooke, Wilmer Valderrama as DJ Kioki, and Wilson Cruz, my so-called life, as Andre Angel Melendez. There was also Dylan McDermott as Peter Gatien, Marilyn Manson as Christina Superstar, Mia Kirshner as Natasha Gatien. But as Michael Alig's fame grows, so does his reckless behavior and his drug addiction. And this escalates to his involvement in the murder of fellow club kid and drug dealer Andre Angel Melendez. I like to read reviews for the movies sometimes on my podcast, but today I'm going to be reading you a review from Michael Alig, the actual person that Macaulay Culkin portrayed. So Michael says that all of his friends told him, "You are gonna hate Party Monster." He said, "They told me this is like a Lifetime movie. Macaulay Culkin was terrible and the acting sucked." But James St. James, watching this movie with his friend Michael Alig, says, "No, Michael, this is how people see you. You think Macaulay Culkin sucks in this movie? Well, then you think you suck because he's playing you to perfection. This is how people see you." And Michael says, "But Macaulay has a weird British accent. Am I going to have to start imitating Macaulay, imitating me, in order for people to believe it's me?" So Michael was like, hell no, the moment this movie starts. But by the end of it, he said he loved it and he gave it a B. Now, you might have noticed we've been talking a lot about Michael Alig, and he's the killer in this true crime story. And there is something very different about this story. Aside from other stories that I've told you, we don't know a ton about the victim, Andre Angel Melendez. We know more than we should about the killer, Michael Alig, because he was glorified. He was the leader of the club kids. He's popular. But I'm going to tell you this story, the Party Monster story, the murder of Andre Angel Melendez, and I am not going to let Andre get lost in this story. So I need you to hang on, trust me, and we're going to get through this. "1984 New York City was a run-down, graffiti everywhere, lawless and scary city. But it was artsy and it was creative. There were very rich people mixed with very poor people. They described it as gritty but fabulous. The art scene included Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, and there were all of these buildings on Staten Island that were abandoned, run down. They were stripped of wiring because junkies were selling copper to buy drugs. There was a lot of violence. There were drive-by shootings. This is not the New York City that we know today. This felt like a war zone. Times Square was still riddled with strip clubs, prostitutes, and Times Square was not a place that people liked to go. It didn't look like it does nowadays. These were the days of Andy Warhol. It's the early 80s, and anyone who was anyone was always at Studio 54. There were a lot of wealthy socialites. So it's 1984, and this guy named Michael Alig shows up in New York City from South Bend, Indiana. He comes from this boring city where he didn't fit in. Michael was gay, he was flamboyant, and so he was completely out of place in South Bend. And obviously he wanted to escape this town, so he escaped to New York City. Michael Alig was born April 29th, 1966. He was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, and he was the second of two sons. His mother was a native of Germany and moved to the United States after marrying his father, who was a computer programmer. And they actually divorced when Michael was about 4 years old. And he was seeking a less conservative environment when he graduated high school in 1984. He ended up getting a scholarship to Fordham University in New York City, and he planned on studying architecture there before transferring to the Fashion Institute of Technology. So Michael was a fantastic student. He was a straight A student, and he graduated in the top 8% of his class. But once Michael got introduced to that New York City nightlife, he dropped out of school and began working at Danceteria as a busboy. So just to give you an example, Danceteria was the shit in the 80s. Madonna premiered her hit single, Everybody, her first song ever, if I'm correct. And there were so many artists that frequented Danceteria. We have Madonna, of course, you guys know. She's my favorite. ever. New Order, Duran Duran, Billy Idol, Sade, Wham, R.E.M., The Smiths, Squeeze, Cyndi Lauper, Keith Haring, Run DMC, Depeche Mode, Butthole Surfers. I hate that name. I mean, the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Romeo Void. Do you remember? I might like you better if we slept together. It's been so long since I've sang on the show. There you go. There you go. My song of the day. So basically what I'm trying to say is this dude coming from Indiana is like, hell no, I'm not going to go to school anymore. I'm going to be working at Danceteria and meeting all of these amazing popular musicians and artists. So while Michael's working at Danceteria, he's not just trying to be a busboy. This dude is taking in the scene. He is learning how the nightclub business works. He's studying everyone's moves, and soon he becomes a party promoter. So it is around this time, 1987, when Andy Warhol dies. And now Andy Warhol is regarded as the most important artist of the second half of the 20th century. And, you know, Andy Warhol saying everyone gets their 15 minutes of fame. I truly believe this. I'm still waiting for mine. So Michael starts thinking, who would be the patron saint of the freaks now that Andy Warhol has passed? It's going to be me. And now you see this moment depicted in the movie Party Monster when Macaulay Culkin, playing Michael Alig, is walking past a newspaper machine. He walks past it. He sees the front page. It says Andy Warhol dies. And he gets it. He pays for it, takes it out of the machine, reads it, kind of smiles, and throws it in the trash can. So Michael starts making his face known all over town. He's handing out flyers. He's throwing parties. Michael wanted to be the new king of the club kids, but not a lot of people cared for Michael. But Michael Alig, he was charming, smart, charismatic. He was flamboyant. He had a crew of kids that would just follow him. They would follow him around everywhere. I feel like he really could have been a cult leader, and he had no idea that he was one. But not everybody loved Michael. There were a lot of people that found him incredibly irritating, and they couldn't see this charm that everyone was talking about. And like I said, one of the main sources I used was the documentary Glory Days, and you can see a lot of these interviews with people that just did not care for Michael. So the club kid scene, the real club kid scene, it starts around the late 80s. The 80s are just ending. We're entering into the 90s, and this club called The Tunnel opens. And there's this man named Rudolph who owns the tunnel. Michael approaches Rudolph and says, look, I can fill this club. Give me the basement of this club. You can have your parties going on upstairs. I'll take the basement. I can fill it. I can do it. And he gets to throw parties in the tunnel basement. And he gets his friend, DJ Kiyoki, to do the music. So Michael actually ended up meeting DJ Kiyoki at this other club called Club Area. And this club was the greatest, most glorious club in all of New York City history. And it all starts happening. It is all working. Michael creates this incredible club kid movement. The whole movement just explodes. And Michael actually creates this anti-fashion look. So the look of the club kids was described in this documentary as juvenile character, bold, deliberately foolish, and deliberately uncool. This was the new glamour. And basically, as James St. James says, he is the author of Party Monster, Disco Bloodbath. We were all the outcast and the losers, and we would never have made it in the previous club scene. Now, Michael's club scene is taken off. Michael's doing it. And RuPaul was a part of the club kid scene. They had so many cool names, these club kids. I loved the names. Okay, Walt Paper is one of my favorites. There's Ruben Sandwich, Jenny Talia. Amazing. And to me, it's the same as how I used to try to come up with names for myself if I was ever going to be on a roller derby team. And I think one of the greatest roller derby names I ever heard was Punky Bruiser. Amazing. I could never do better than that name. And I never did do that roller derby, and I never was a club kid. So many things to regret. As Michael starts blowing up, you can see Michael on so many daytime TV talk shows with his club kids, his crew. And there's this writer, Amy Vership. She writes a cover story for New York Magazine, and Michael is on the cover, and it says Club Kids. So this scene, these kids, they are on MTV, they are on talk shows, they are getting their big break. So they're showing other kids that, look what we can do. You can break out of your shell. So they're embracing the, quote, weird kids, the people that were bullied, the outcast, the people that didn't really ever feel like they belonged anywhere. Now they felt like they had a place, and Michael was their leader. Everything seems to be going perfectly amazing, and Michael's nights at the tunnel are kicking off. Like, they are going full speed ahead. People are loving this tunnel basement party every week, but the tunnel closes and Michael starts to gravitate towards the club owner, the most famous and the king of club owners in New York City, Peter Gatien. And Peter Gatien owned Limelight. Peter Gatien actually owned 3 nightclubs, but Limelight was a very popular club kid scene club, and Peter says, let me come to Limelight. You know, I'm going to do a great party for you. It's going to be amazing. We're going to make you so much money. And Peter Gatien says, let's do it. Well, it took Peter a little bit. It took Peter a little persuasion, because Michael was obnoxious and he was his own worst enemy. The one good thing about Michael in the beginning was that he didn't do drugs. He never drank and he never took drugs at first. He was this squeaky clean guy that turned himself into a club kid. He hated drugs. But Michael did soon get wrapped up in the world of drugs in the club kid scene. Michael creates this night called Disco 2000. This is Wednesday nights. This is Michael's night. And this was the most successful night of the week for the club. Every other day did not compare to Wednesday night with Michael Alig, Disco 2000. They had this thing called unnatural acts where someone would, for instance, drink their own pee on stage. And that was the gist of it. They called it Disneyland on crack. It was the era of promiscuity, the era of anything goes, wild makeup, wild costumes. And so, okay, club owner, Peter Gatien, he's this genius. He always hangs out in his office. He never hung out with the kids. He had 3 clubs going. His scene is completely organized. So they start throwing outlaw parties outside of these clubs, because then they don't have to deal with the businessman of it all. So these parties would be thrown at, let's say, McDonald's, a Dairy Queen, in a grocery store. They threw a party in a subway train, and this was really taking off. And like I said, Michael is now getting deep into the drug scene. And this is the thing, is that drugs were everywhere. Everyone was doing drugs. There was nicotine, Valium, Vicodin, marijuana, ecstasy, and alcohol. Ooh, nicotine, Valium, Vicodin, marijuana, ecstasy, and alcohol. You guys got 2 songs in one episode. If you can tell me who sang that song, you are my best friend. And just a little clue as to who sang that song is when I sang Romeo Void earlier in the episode. This band covers the Romeo Void song. So these kids are doing ecstasy, weed, cocaine, Special K, GHB, crystal meth, roofies, heroin, acid, and mushrooms. And they're doing all of them. They're just in a constant state of drug. Is that a thing? I'm just really not versed. I'm not well versed in the drug lingo. So here's where things start going the wrong way for the club kids. Rudy Giuliani, wants to clean up New York City, and he starts targeting the club kids. So police and the Giuliani administration, they're trying to figure out how to get these clubs shut down. So if we can shut down the clubs, we can get rid of these club kids that are taking over our city. And Peter Gatien, as I said, was the king of New York City at this time. So he was going to be the message that the police are going to send. He became a target. If the police could shut down Peter Gatien, the king of the clubs, then no one could survive. And he lost. Peter Gatien was shut down. Giuliani, he shut it all down. The police, the Giuliani administration, they didn't want these club kids around because they were doing so many drugs. There was just so many drugs being done in this drug scene. It was like somebody was dying every day. It became normal to the kids in the scene. So when they would hear so-and-so overdosed, they'd be like, oh, It was just like it didn't affect them anymore. They're desensitized to it. And it starts to become like this isn't even a party anymore. Then Michael Alig throws this foreshadowing type of party. It was called the Blood Feast Party, and this becomes the turning point in the Club Kid scene. So this was a Club Kid serial killer theme. And this all happened before Michael Alig murdered Angel Melendez. And I call it the foreshadowing party because Michael ends up murdering one of the club kids. And this Blood Feast party, it was so crazy because Michael's wearing this shirt during the party that says legs cut off. Michael has a hammer in one of the pictures. There's just blood everywhere. And at this point, for these parties that Michael's throwing, he starts hiring drug dealers. And their job was to come in and distribute drugs, to keep the party going, to keep the kids there. And this is where we meet Andre Angel Melendez. Andre Angel Melendez was born May 1st, 1971. He was a part of the New York City Club Kids, and he lived and worked in New York City. So Andre and his family arrived in New York City from Colombia when he was about 8 years old. And he became a drug dealer during the early 1990s after he met Peter Gatien, the owner of the Limelight, and he became a regular dealer in these nightclubs. Andre was what they called a pier queen. He was part of the crowd that hung out around the West Village piers, and he was a street guy. He was a nice guy with a rough side. Now, Andre always wore these angel wings. I mean, they're huge. They're beautiful. I'll have a picture of Andre on my Instagram. And he used to go to CBGBs a lot. He was more of a punk, a hardcore kid in the late 80s, early 90s. He wasn't A-list like Michael and his crew. And he wasn't even really accepted into the circle of Michael's inner circle. And this would happen with most people that became drug dealers. They had to break through to that A-list, and they couldn't. So they would start to sell drugs, and then they were invited to every party. Now, Angel was his nickname because of the wings that he always wore. And Angel also was a little paranoid that people didn't like him. On Sunday, March 17th, 1996, Angel Melendez went over to Michael Alig and Robert Freeze Riggs' apartment. Now, at this time, Michael had a few drug dealers living with him. He also had a roommate named Robert Freeze Riggs. So it's about 10 a.m. on this Sunday morning, and Michael and Freeze, they've been up since about Thursday. Yes, Thursday. They have been awake on drugs this entire time. They're out of their minds. Angel is at the door, and the doorman informs Michael, hey, your friend Angel's down here. Should I let him up? Michael says, yeah, let him up. But once Angel gets into the apartment, he tells him, listen, this isn't the time to be talking about money. Let's take a nap, and then all of us can go to the club, and we'll give you your money. And Angel's like, no. Give me my money now. So an argument breaks out over this money, this drug money that was owed to Angel. And Freeze, Michael's roommate, gets into the middle of this and goes, you know what? This is why no one likes you, Angel. This is why you have no friends. And Angel starts saying, is this true? And he's grabbing Michael by the throat. Now, this is the story from Michael Alig and Robert Freeze Riggs. So Angel's not here to defend himself and tell anyone what happens. So he says that Angel grabbed Michael by the throat and threw him into this glass cabinet. So this confrontation is becoming very violent, and it looks as though Angel is winning this fight. So Michael starts asking for help. He's like, help me, to Freeze. Freeze comes over. He tries to grab Angel off of Michael, but then grabs a hammer that's laying nearby and hits Angel on the head 3 times. Angel falls to the ground, and then these two smother him with a pillow, and then they take a bottle of Drano and they pour it down his throat and then wrap his mouth with masking tape. And Michael says, well, then they tried to take him to the bathtub, put him underwater to revive him. Okay, so with the masking tape on and the Drano in his mouth. So they put him underwater and they say no bubbles were coming up. They both realize that they have killed Angel and they don't know what to do. And many people asked Michael later, why didn't you just call a lawyer? Why didn't you, if this was self-defense, why didn't you just call someone and say, look, my drug dealer came over, we got into a fight. And Michael's response is that, listen, Angel had a ton of drugs on him. And we can't call a lawyer. We're going to get in trouble for all these drugs. So instead, you know what we should do? We should use the drugs. And they leave Angel's body in that bathtub for 5 to 7 days. They pour baking soda all over him. They pour Drano all over Angel's body. And then they steal all of Angel's drugs and they leave the apartment. So they're gone for about 5 to 7 days. They return back to the apartment and Michael is still so fucked up, just like on the drugs and just mentally from everything that happened, that he's thinking maybe Angel won't be there. Maybe he was still alive. Maybe he got up and he left. No, but he's there. Angel's body is still in that bathtub covered in baking soda, covered in Drano. And Freeze starts spraying Calvin Klein Eternity all over the apartment to cover up the smell. They don't know what to do. They can't tell anyone that they left Angel's body in the house. What about the smell? What are they going to do? So Freeze goes to Macy's and buys a butcher knife. And they decide this. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do so much heroin, Angel's heroin, that we either die or we're so messed up, we just chop up his body and get rid of the body. So they do all of the heroin and then they start hacking up Angel's body. And Michael says in a prison interview, I cut so fast just to get it over with. It felt like it took like 2 minutes to chop up Angel's body. Later, Freeze would say that they actually used 2 chef's knives and 1 cleaver to dismember Angel. And then after they dismembered him, they took his legs and 2 of them wrapped the legs in garbage bags and placed them into individual duffel bags and then put those into a box. And their plan was that they wanted to dump this box into the Hudson River. These 2 are still so fucked up on drugs. They hail a cab. The cab driver stops. The cab driver's cool. What do you guys got in that box? Do you need me to help? Helps them carry this box out of the cab towards the river. And they're telling him, oh, don't worry about what's in the box. This box is full of old dishes. And they throw this box into the river and it doesn't sink. So they go home. And they actually paid the cab driver $20 to help them carry that box. This cab driver doesn't say a word. So they decide, okay, this is just one bad decision after another. What are we doing? We've gotten some cab driver involved. We just threw the box in. The box didn't even sink. We don't know what to do. Michael says Freeze wanted to jump in after the box and they didn't. So they go home and obviously they keep their mouths shut. Just kidding. Michael is blabbering about this all over town. For instance, he's talking to one of his club kid friends, Astro. He's like, hey, Astro, what do you think I'm wearing? Michael's wearing Angel's boots. Astro's like, I don't know. What are you wearing? He's like, do you see anything that somebody else might be wearing? Do you notice who's missing? Do you notice who we haven't seen around the club scene lately? Look, I'm wearing his boots. That's the extent he's going to let people know, look what I did, and I might be getting away with it. But you have to remember that Michael is obnoxious, according to everyone. He's always the center of attention. He always needs all eyes on him. So people just don't believe him. They just feel like, is this Michael trying to get some press, trying to stage a fake murder? Michael was convinced no body, no crime. But at the same time, while Michael's blabbering all about this all over town, Freeze is having a very difficult time. He's got paranoia. He thinks that he's going to get caught. He doesn't know what to do. He's doing drugs nonstop. And meanwhile, police have already called this a cold case. They don't know who this could be. They're like, okay, let's wrap it up. Cold case. We don't know who could have done this. But Michael and Freeze don't know that. Now, Angel's brother, he wants to know where his brother is. He is out looking for him. Angel has been missing. What the hell happened? And he and his father turn to the press. So the mainstream media begins covering Angel's disappearance. And now journalist Michael Musto, who is an entertainment-related journalist, he is best known for his column in The Village Voice. So he writes a piece on this disappearance of Angel Melendez. So in this blind item, the names aren't used. He's using fake names, but he is reporting the exact details that Michael Alig is walking around Clubland talking about. So page 6 in the New York Post, they pick up this article and detectives read this article, and that was it. The detectives knew they had enough to make an arrest. So when Michael Musto writes this article, it's huge. It is being talked about all over the city. And the following week in the Village Voice, they add a sidebar to Michael Musto's column. Here is a sample of that article. And just to let you know, Musto refers to Michael Alig and Robert Fries as Mr. Mess 1 and Mr. Mess 2, refers to Angel as Mr. Dealer. How's the latest story going around about what supposedly happened in that recent Clubland scandal? Mr. Mess was fighting with Mr. Dealer about money Mr. Dealer was owed. It escalated to the point where Mr. Dealer was choking Mr. Mess, just at the moment when Mr. Mess number 2 happened to walk in. Mr. Mess number 2, a quick thinker, promptly hit Mr. Dealer over the head with a hammer. Not happy with that, he and Mr. Mess decided to finish off Mr. Dealer by shooting him up with Drano, a trick even the twisted, twosome, and diabolique didn't come up with. After Mr. Dealer died, the two set to work chopping the body into pieces and throwing them into the river. But I didn't actually kill him, Mr. More of a Mess than ever has allegedly remarked. So detectives, they're on to Michael and Fries now. At this point, Michael's actually living in a hotel with his new boyfriend. Well, he's living in a motel with his new boyfriend named Brian, who is actually also a drug dealer. So here's the thing. Obviously, as I said, Angel's body in the box didn't sink. And this box washed up ashore. And these children found the box and they're poking at it. And they kind of cut a hole in it and they realize a body is inside. So police did start an investigation. I mean, they found a body in a river. Kids found a body. So they bring this body to the coroner and it's misidentified as that of an Asian male. So this mutilated corpse wasn't positively identified as Angel until November 2nd, 1996, when Angel's family is coming to look for him. And they're like, where the hell is our brother? And this is when the details of the rumors of Michael Alig going around town and then the Village Voice article comes out. And now police are like, oh my God, we've got him. It's Michael Alig. He's living in a motel. So they go straight to that motel. They knock on the door and they're like, hello, maintenance. And Michael is absolutely drugged out of his mind when they arrive. Detectives said that when they got into that room, they had to actually stand him up. They had to hold him up and he had no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, police are also picking up Robert Fries Riggs and he's on his way to work. And he tells detectives, oh my God, thank God you have finally caught me because I cannot live with this anymore. He tells them everything immediately. And he goes to the police station and writes a confession. But here's the thing. New York City police were still after Peter Gatien, the king of the clubs. So they wanted Peter Gatien behind bars and they offer Michael Alig a plea deal. They say, we're focused on your former boss and we would love it if you would testify against him. So people find out Michael's offered this plea deal and there are several months that pass by and a lot of people believed that Michael is about to get away with murdering Angel. And James St. James even recounts in the book Party Monster how Angel's brother was just baffled by what he regarded callous indifference by the police and by the club kids, these same exact club kids that his brother Angel considered friends. Even though police offer him a plea deal to testify against Peter Gatien, Michael Alig says no. Now all these facts are coming out about the murder, and people are looking back on things that Michael said to them, and they're like, holy shit, he was telling the truth. They're looking back on the Blood Feast party, the poster for the Blood Feast party. My good God, Michael Alig, are you serious? He's wearing a t-shirt that says legs cut off. And then he ends up cutting off his drug dealer's legs. There is blood splatter all over this poster. There is the hammer, as I said. So obviously, police are thinking, is this premeditation? Was this planned out? Both Michael Alig and Robert Riggs, they take a plea deal, and they pled guilty to manslaughter. 10 to 20 years concurrent. After this conviction, Michael Musto says that this was a self-imploding scene. The clubs started closing down. Peter Gatien was deported to Canada. The whole entire club kid scene collapsed. It was the end of an era. People were talking about Michael. They said Michael liked horror movies. Do you think this was the drugs? I mean, he liked drugs, but the Drano, the dismemberment, did the drugs make this easy for Michael, or was this always something that was inside of Michael Alig? While in prison, Michael said, we didn't look like the rest of them. We didn't talk like the rest of them. Like, Michael and Freeze did not look like they belonged in prison. But Michael became pen pals with so many people. I'm telling you guys, I did a video on TikTok. There are so many comments flooding the comment section telling me I was pen pals with Michael Alig. I still have the letters. So many people. Robert Freeze Riggs was released from prison in 2010. And on May 5th, 2014, Michael Alig was released from prison. Now, Michael went into prison in 1997. So while in prison, he was never on the internet. He wasn't around for the explosion of the internet, Google, cell phones, and the people outside, the other club kids, they grew up, they moved on. In a prison interview, Michael mentions Chloe Savini as someone who never took drugs, and she became a success. He should have been more like that. He says when he sees old footage of himself, he thinks it's a wonder I had any friends at all. When Michael was released from prison on May 5th, 2014, after 17 years and 5 years in solitary confinement, his friend James St. James wrote an open letter about all the things that have changed. And when Alig was released, he was really intimidated by the world, by New York City. He said, it's intimidating now. I used to be the king of this land, and now I don't know what I'm doing. He said it felt surprisingly not good. It felt wrong that people around him were celebrating. He didn't like that he had a crowd waiting for him at home when he was released. He didn't like the feeling. And you know what else Michael didn't like are the internet trolls. He wasn't used to this, and he didn't know this world that we now live in. And these people weren't saying very nice things about him on the internet. If you think about it, though, that has to be a real mind fuck to just drop in to troll culture. So at the end of this documentary that's focused on Michael Alig only, he says, if they can reinvent Times Square like they've done, I should certainly be able to reinvent myself. And Michael did try. In 2015, he had his first and only art show. He held this in art galleries in New York City. He even hooked up with DJ Keoki, and they worked this weekly party every Monday night called Outrage. And this actually brought together old and new generations of club kids. And then in January of 2017, he actually convinced a nightlife personality and musician, Jason Chaos, to curate and work Outrage. So each week, Outrage had a party with a theme. So he's back to his theme parties. Michael also starred in 4 epic Spade Rivis films. It was Vamp Bikers 2, Vamp Bikers 3, and Duke of New York. And then, on February 2nd, 2017, Michael was arrested for trespassing and smoking crystal meth in the park. And since Michael was again working these events, these parties, he continued to promote and host parties during the COVID-19 pandemic and during the lockdowns. He was hosting Zoom party events, and he was one of the first people to do it. And here's the thing, I'm not telling you all of this to glorify Michael Alig and see that he went on with his life. I'm saying it all to show you that he went on to have a life. Angel did not. But on Christmas Eve of 2020, Michael Alig was found unconscious at his home. He was using heroin, and he overdosed and was pronounced at the scene. He was only 54 years old. Now, Wilson Cruz played Andre Angel Melendez in the movie Party Monster, and to end this episode, I wanted to read to you a post that Wilson Cruz posted on his Instagram page in December of 2020. Now, this was right after Michael Alig was found deceased. Wilson Cruz wrote, Andre Angel Melendez was a son, a brother, and he was loved by his family and friends. He, as so many young people in the 90s, longed to find a place where he belonged and where he felt safe to express who he was. He took on a club persona of an angel. And when I played him in the movie Party Monster, I felt and understood in a profound way that those wings were as much a prayer for his own safety and protection than for any cosmetic effect. I think he knew he needed protection in the world he'd found himself in, the only world I think he thought was available to him. And tragically, it was there that he met his ultimate demise at the hands of his murderers. His head was bludgeoned, he was doused in bleach and dumped in a bathtub for a week before his legs were hacked off and he was thrown in the river. Another young, brown, queer boy murdered, and he wasn't even centered in that story when it was told. Andre Angel Melendez was a son, a brother, a friend. He was more than an anecdote in a murderer's obituary. He was the lead character in the movie of his life, and today, I choose to remember him. Stay safe and stay paranoid. Residue is created, hosted, written, researched, edited, and produced by me, Chrissy Champagne.